This is Kyle McCord, and you're listening to Austin, Felix, and Matt on the Devy Debate.
Welcome to the Devy Debate. All right, boys, are we ready to debate? Austin, you tweeted something, girl. You tweeted your running back rankings. Explain yourself.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand, fellas. You jumped up enough.
That's Austin Nace.
Who is going to be that guy? And for me, Bijan Robinson is still going to be that guy.
Back to the ground with Robinson, who spins and then tries to bounce it. A stiff arm, another one as he rides it. Keeps his balance. They're going to say he stepped out, but
I'm Felix Sharp. Jake, I know you didn't think that we would get through this episode without mentioning the name one Zach F. Wilson.
Screener draw. Oh, Wilson is going to uncourt for the end zone, and he drops it in beautifully. And it is his roommate, Dax Milne, on the touchdown.
That's Matt Bruning.
G. Scott Jr. Obviously, I waxed poetic about him on the last episode, so I won't do that again here.
And this time it's Fields on the carry. Watch out! Justin Fields! Hello, Columbus! 51 yards!
Bruning, are you ready to go head-to-head with me?
I am.
Got to get my popcorn out here. Hold on.
Got to continue. I got it. Kyle McCord is going to end up winning the job. He's going to be rated higher.
Well, I'm not nearly as passionate about what I'm about to talk about.
Our apologies to Kirk Herbstreit. We ran out of time. We'll get him rescheduled soon. And for Matt Bruning and Austin Nace, I'm Felix Sharp. Good night and good luck. It's 9:30 Eastern time, the time zone that just started watching college football. That means it's time for the Devy Debate, brought to you by CampusToCanton.com. Just me and Chris Moxley tonight. And on a fair weather version of tonight's show, we rate some Big Ten skill position players for the NCAA video game. I know we said that last week. We're actually going to get into it today, and we discuss some spring camp running back competitions, Chris. But I want to start with something I came across in preparing for the freshman guide. I was scouting quarterback Austin Mack, Folsom, California, going to Washington, and watched his tight end teammate Walker Lyons, get injured on a tackle very similar to the tackle that injured Cowboys running back Tony Pollard in the last game of the season, or in the playoff game, this year. And it struck a chord with me because Walker Lyons, senior, he's the class of 2023. He's committed to Stanford. So it's good that he gets to play football again. But so much goes into your senior year. These are guys that you've been playing with maybe since 8th grade, maybe before that, where you have aspirations for state championships, district championships, prom, all of this other stuff. And he missed it. And he missed his senior year because his leg was broken on this particular tackle. And there has been some commentary in the community about getting rid of these types of plays. And it's one thing to see it with a professional. To me, it's something entirely different to see it from a kid in high school who still got his hopes and dreams ahead of him. And to miss your senior year, I guess I relate to it, Chris, because my senior year, about 2 weeks, or maybe less than 2 weeks before training camp was going to start in the fall, I was playing racquetball at the local athletic club, and I felt a pop. Just trying. A guy he saw me walk past. He asked me if I wanted to try it. I said yes. I tried it for a little bit. Felt a pop in my knee, fell to the ground, couldn't move my leg, could not literally extend my right leg, and went to the doctor. They thought it was a torn meniscus surgery. I was going to miss training camp, maybe miss the season, but miss a large portion of the season. And I felt, I guess, some feelings that would be similar to what Walker Linesfeld. I've worked so long for this since I was playing rocket football. This is my last year. This is the last run with the guys. And it's not like college, Chris, where you get a medical red shirt, you get a do-over. If you miss that senior season, that's it. That's completely it. And I just remember being in the bed, ice on my knee, just putting a clock in my head for like, I'm going to miss this season. There's nothing I could really do, and really being depressed. Now, it just so happened that in my situation, ended up getting an MRI and things turned out to be okay. But the anxiousness and anxiety that I felt in that week, I wasn't able to participate in training camp that my senior year, just kind of being scared that I was going to miss the season. I could not imagine what Walker Lyons was feeling. And so anything that we can do to eliminate these kinds of injuries, I'm for it across the board. Again, it's one thing if it's professional. Tony Pollard, he's kind of made it to the highest level. Walker Lyons still has his dreams of playing college football, and now he's going to be going into his freshman season at Stanford, recovering from a broken leg. And so I'm usually the guy on the side of the defense and looking to relax regulations for the defense. But when you got a kid, Chris, that is lost because that injury was in the first game of the season, in the first quarter of the first game of the season. When you have a kid lose his senior season, that just struck a chord with me. And you're muted.
Dang it. I was listening to
this emotional opening to the show, and throw it to Chris and he's muted.
Well, it was beautiful, of course. I think he might be committed somewhere else, but I'll let someone else comment on that maybe at the end of the show. But I will say Walker Lyons is at least going to Norway for probably 2 years to heal up. He's a Mormon. His mission is going to be in Norway, which we talked about this in our Discord, actually, and I was surprised that one could get a mission to Norway. I know that the Church of the Latter-day Saints there is not super prominent, but he's going to Norway for probably 2 years. So he will at least have time to rehab that injury with probably cheap healthcare and really good science. So hopefully Walker Lyons gets there.
This is a strong opening to the show tonight, Chris. We're talking about a kid who got injured back in September of 2022. I've misidentified where he's committed, talked about myself, and then we get into the Church of Latter-day Saints. That's why they pay us the big bucks. Chris Moxley.
Of course.
It's the off season. What are you going to do? Mox, we covered this subject on the Better Sports Show last week. Maybe 2 weeks ago now. I think it was 2 weeks ago. We covered this subject on the Better Sports Show. Things that make college football. And I thought that I had pocket aces with my answer of pronouncing the word program, as program. That epitomizes college football. You came in and got like a straight flush with some of your answers. Do you remember what it is that you said? Can you give, some of our audience doesn't cross over and does not listen to the Better Sports Show, but give me some of your answers because they were really good.
Yeah, I do remember them. My favorite, and this has always been my favorite, is the flight tracking of university jets between like your school and potential like college football schools. So if something's going to West Palm Beach or an area like that, maybe when Lane Kiffin was at FAU, it might have been Lane Kiffin coming to your school, or just people tracking flights. And then there was the one story where Urban Meyer was on vacation and he was going to take a visit to Texas A&M while he was on vacation. in Florida. So they were tracking all the airports near like Vero Beach, like private airports near Vero Beach or something. I mean, these people are just insane. That's always been my favorite.
Lane Kiffin trolling people.
He
with
gets
pictures
it.
of jets on the runway.
Oh yeah, Lane Kiffin knows. He gets it. He understands. I had hating on 17-year-olds just because they are not going to enroll in your university, calling them dumb, calling them idiots, saying they're self-centered. You know, these kids are 17, but you just absolutely hate them with just the force of like 10,000 suns. These people are just violent. Some of my favorites. One that I didn't mention on Better Sports that I wish I did. Colored fields. You don't get colored fields in the NFL. You have the Boise State Smurf turf. You have the teal field in Coastal Carolina. You have the gray field at Eastern Michigan. You have the red field at Eastern Washington. And maybe I'm forgetting some, but I think that covers most of them. Just like what NFL team is ever, or any other sports league really, is going to play on a red or gray field? It's like that is just peak college football.
It is. And just to piggyback on that, Chris, different systems playing against each other. Like if you get USC playing against Michigan, it's totally different systems. Whereas in the NFL, it's more or less everyone playing the same style of game. Now, you might have a team that's a little bit more run heavy. You might have a team that runs a little bit more cover 3, a little bit more cover 2, like the old Tony Dungy, Tampa Bay Buccaneers teams. But more or less, most teams are playing the same thing. It's rare where you get the comparison of, Air Force or Army versus whomever, who is just playing a totally different game than everyone else.
I mean, look at Coastal Carolina, right? Like they have like a modified option offense.
Yes.
Coastal Carolina is running a modified option offense on a teal field in Conway, South Carolina. Like you don't get any more peak college football than that. And, that I don't think I brought that up when we talked about it last time, but that was one of my favorites. And I also love the absurd proposals, just like the message board rants. Absurd people just being generally insane. The one that I brought up last time was there were a couple that I really, really liked, but one was that A&M should hire a magician as their offensive coordinator or just as a specialist on staff to run trick plays. So like they should bring in David Blaine as a coach or an assistant to come up with trick plays because they are, quote, masters of illusion.
The message boards are absolutely crazy. You brought up Conway, South Carolina. When did BYU in 2020 decide that they were going to put all of their equipment on the truck and play this game on that Saturday? It was after the start of the week. It was after Monday. They're like, all right.
It was probably like Tuesday or Wednesday. And I mean, they let Zach Wilson get destroyed in that game. The refs, that was he had
an excellent finish to that game. That was one of the greatest games that we've seen in the last 8-10 years or so.
What was Wilson saying or BYU saying? Anywhere, anytime.
Anywhere, anytime, any place, blah, 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 whatever. Remember, they were trying to get into the playoff. They were undefeated, but they had a weaker schedule because they're an independent. They had to reschedule all of their opponents because, all of these conferences were doing conference play only. So, and that's the season that elevated Zach Wilson to the number 2 pick in the draft.
And they ended up losing that game. BYU.
They lost, they lost, but they had a chance with like 2 minutes left. I mean, they were within 5 yards of scoring a touchdown to take the lead in that game. I mean, that is a classic game that we've seen in the last 5 years. Right up there with Georgia and Ohio State, right up there with UCLA and Fresno State. That would be a good list to come up with. The best games in the last 5 to 10 years or so.
Yeah, I mean, you said it, but like that game was helped by circumstance so much. Like the chaos of the COVID season meant that But BYU could go across country and actually like play a game against North Carolina and nobody batted an eye.
It would be hard to explain to someone, well, this game wasn't on the schedule. They just decided at the last minute to put it on the schedule, and they drove there from Utah to South Carolina. At least the equipment buses, the equipment was on the truck.
Yeah, I don't think Zach Wilson was in that convoy per se. He probably was on a train or on a flight.
On a train. Let us know at Campus to Canton, what are your examples of what makes college football? I think we've got some good ones. We're going to continue to play that game. Chris, we need people to subscribe to the YouTube page, subscribe to TikTok. We have not had a rate and review on the Campus to Canton podcast feed since December.
Whew.
I think it was that's terrible, guys. That's terrible.
And we track our listens, so we know more of y'all are listening. So
oh yeah.
Where's the positive feedback or negative feedback, but with a 5-star review, of course.
We have an excellent podcast lineup: Chasing the Natty, the Daily Draft Report, Campus Life, Back to Devy Debate, Canton Bound, the official. Give us a rate and review. We need at least 2. Can I get 2 rates and reviews between now and next Wednesday's show? I'd really appreciate it. Also, March 1st, the freshman and supplemental draft guide is coming. That's why Matt's not here. He's concentrating on getting that finished out here. And I don't know what Austin is doing. I have no idea what Austin is doing. I figure that, he's probably.
I thought he was in like, was the island off Croatia? Havarti?
You're asking me?
Yeah, the party island off Croatia. I thought that he was there this week, but
he's at Fire. He's organizing Fire Fest too.
Okay.
So off some island. So and stay tuned because we are going to have an announcement closer to March. March is going to be a fun time to be around Campus to Canton. I promise you that. Specifically, if you are consuming our content for the first time or you are looking to get into either college fantasy or C2C for the first time, you're going to want to stay tuned. Let's get into these video game ratings, Chris. Last week's show went so long. We went an hour and a half, and we were not able to get into the video game ratings. And I want to get into this because I think that this is going to make college players more visible and more marketable than they ever have before. It's a very small thing, but when you think about how you play Madden or how you play the old NCAA video game, you hit that R2 and you scroll back to scan the field to either hot route or whatever. In Madden, you see the players' names: Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams, Javonte Williams in the backfield, Matthew Stafford. You see those names. That had never been the case on NCAA. If you were playing with the old Michigan teams, you would see Denard Robinson. You would see you would see quarterback. What was Denard Robinson? 12? I forgot what number he was. 16. I think he was 16.
Yeah. 16.
Quarterback
Right.
16. Or if you were playing with, I used to play with the Texas Longhorns. You'd play with Colt McCoy. You would see quarterback 12. Wide receiver number 4, Lima Sweet. And so now the NCAA video game is going to have the players' names on them. So when you scroll back, you will see Emeka Ibuka. You will see his name on the game. Marvin Harrison Jr. You will see these names on the game. Devontae Walker, Drake May, Trevante Citizen. It's a small thing, but when you grow up playing these games, and as popular as this game is going to be, you're really going to remember. People like Michael Vick is an icon because of how good he was, but his avatar in the 2006-2007 Madden game adds to that, to his legacy, to his legend, just how good Michael Vick was on that game. People still talk about how unstoppable Bo Jackson was on Tecmo Bowl. I've never played with Bo Jackson on Tecmo Bowl, and I know that. I tell you what, though, players like Randy Moss in 1999's Madden or Javon Curse, like these Warren Sapp, like these players who are kind of just unstoppable. I'll give you one, Chris Moxley. Sean Taylor, when Madden released the hit stick, anytime you hit sticked with Sean Taylor, that running back was fumbling the football. And we grew up, and that added to these players' legacy, these players' legacies. And it's just something that we did not have with college players. We're going to have it now. So it's my opinion that is going to lead to these players being more visible, being more marketable. So if you need to sell a car or pop soda or, whatever it is, you might go the route of getting the college player to do it, which is like just another domino falling on itself. When you have them visible in the game, now they're on television because they are more marketable. I think that we haven't even really touched the surface. I don't know if I used that expression right, but you know what I mean. I don't know that we've even begun to see the type of investment in marketing that we are going to see for college players. I think that we're 3 years away from a college player having a Nike signature shoe. You might be able to go and get the Nike Dominic Royolas. I don't think that we're that far away from that happening. And so I think we're going to see more money coming into college football, not less. Some players I can think of that would have had, their legacy changed if their name was on the actual game. Pat White at West Virginia. A ridiculous player in college football. I can stay in West Virginia. Tavon Austin. Marcus Vick.
I thought you were going to say Steve Slayton.
Steve Slayton, sure. Noel Devine. I don't know if people remember Noel Devine. He was his avatar on the NCAA video game. Excellent player. Never made it to the NFL, but excellent player. Actually, he might have played in the NFL for a season or two. But Marcus Vick.
We're just naming West Virginia players. Oh, yeah. Marcus Vick was a great example.
Marcus Vick, great player in college. One of my favorites, I mentioned him earlier, Limas Swede. I used to throw the ball up to Limas Swede and just go use or catch it. It didn't matter if there were 3-4 players in the air. He was 6'4", whatever it was. He was always coming down with it. So I think that we are going to see, Chris Moxley, these players become more marketable because kids are going to know them. These grown men playing this game, they're going to know them. And this game is going to be very, very popular when it is re-released.
Yeah, I think I agree with your assessment that we're a couple years away, but there is a substantial amount of hype marketing that is built into the game. And I think you touched on it in a couple different examples, which is, there's an incentive to market these players. And I think it benefits EA who holds, their I don't know the legal definition or legalese, I guess is the right word to say it. I think that they can purchase the rights to the players when they sign off on it. And so you're going to see players' names pop up for the first time ever. Like, I was a Rutgers fan growing up, and, RB27 on Rutgers playing NCAA, I that was fun. Like, I knew who that was as a fan, but when you have a bunch of other people who are playing as his team or randomizing as his team, and you're seeing these guys go off on crazy performances, it boosts a player's stock to the point where they can be independently successful of a NFL, XFL, whatever competition. And so I'm right there with you. I just think it's going to be a huge boon to a lot of players, individual marketing campaigns. And, it's a shame we're not having that now, because I bet Marvin Harrison Jr. would make so much freaking money on
and I'm glad, because, Luke is talking about Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers is not going to have a career after college, so he needs to get all the marketing money that he can get there at Texas. We've got a long off season. So let's just do the Big Ten, some Big Ten names here, and let's give them some ratings. Is that fair, Chris?
Fair enough.
All right. We'll start with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Quarterback Kyle McCord, projected starter. I think that's fair to say. Projected starter Kyle McCord. He should at least have the edge. What rating are you giving him?
84.
84. I mean, for a guy that hadn't started,
hasn't started. I mean, he started one game against.
He started one game against
Akron
his freshman season.
Yeah, we haven't seen him. I think 84 is in the lowest scale just based on his recruiting pedigree.
Yeah, that's probably fair. He's going to be a third-year player. I'm going to give Kyle McCord in 83, very close to what you have him, 83. I'm going to give Devin Brown in 81, but his throw power is probably going to be like 94 for me. He probably needs some awareness, some experience. I'm giving Devin Brown in 81. I don't think that there's that much of a drop-off between the two.
I was going to give him an 83.
You're going to give
really
Devin
close.
Brown 83? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're incredibly close.
Okay.
I do think McCord, we've talked about this. I think he wins that job, but
Okay.
talent-wise, they're right there.
Let's go to the running back position. Travion Henderson. I'm going to give Travion. I mean, he was, after his freshman season, he was headed to being a 95, 97 ranked player. After last season, I'm going to give Travion in 89. Is that fair?
More than I have him, so yeah.
What would you put him at?
88. And
Okay. We're right around the same.
Is toughness an attribute, or is strength?
Yes,
an
it
attribute?
is.
Okay,
is.
so if toughness is an attribute, he's scoring pretty low in there. I just think he's kind of. I think it's maybe mental, but I think that he needs to improve on his toughness. He kind of plays soft.
You know who doesn't play soft? And that is one Mayan Williams, who has been one of my guys for a while now. I'm rating Mayan Williams 85, but his break tackle is probably 94. His speed might be like 83, but his strength is probably in the 80s. His break tackle is in the 90s. And, there's going to be some players that just go ahead in the depth chart and put Mayan Williams ahead of Travion Henderson because they want that big bruiser in between the tackles. I'm going 85 for Mayan Williams.
I give him an 82. But I think I was a little low, so I'm going to give him an 83.
Okay.
I don't know. I just don't think he's that talented of a player, but he's got a great offense. We're just rating players. We're not getting into debate of players. He deserves to be 5 points behind Travion, and you have him 4 points behind. So, I'm a little lower on Travion. There we go.
I don't understand. I mean, is it Travion's speed that makes him that much better? I guess.
He's just a more talented back, across the board. In almost every category will have him higher, except toughness and strength.
I'll even throw Dallin Hayden in here. I'll give him a 72. 72 for the sophomore Dallin Hayden.
I actually kind of like him. I'm going to give him 77.
That's a loaded backfield for a video game.
Yeah, yeah, it's really good backfield.
Let's go to the wide receiver position. Marvin Harrison Jr. Let's give him a 96. 96 for me for Marvin Harrison Jr.
Man, it's tough to get up there. I was going to say 94, but he will probably be the top-ranked receiver in the game anyway.
Oh, absolutely. I don't even know who would be number 2. I think it might
be the guy we're going to talk about next.
It could be. Emeka Ibuka steps into the slot. It's just hard for me. I'm going to give Emeka Ibuka an 88.
I think that he and Marvin Harrison Jr. are a little bit closer. I'm going to give him a 90.
Okay. We're in the same ballpark.
Yeah, for the most part. We're only two apart.
The 2020 number 1 receiver in his class, 5-star out of Pennsylvania, Julian Fleming, should be starting at flanker. I'm going to give him 77.
Oh, you're higher on Fleming than I am. I'm going to give him a 71. I'm just convinced he just isn't very good at this point. Like probably athleticism is high, but like technique is
he's one of those
pretty
players
low.
that you on the video game you're hot routing to get out of the way so that you can throw the ball to other people, including this freshman Brandon Ennis. Let's just do Brandon Ennis. I'll give Brandon Ennis a 75. He's a freshman. I'll give him a 75. That's pretty high for a freshman.
Yeah. I'll give him a 73, which I think is also high. You know, I think it's respectable. I would probably have him as the third highest rated receiver in that room. So, yeah.
I just want to do this for the comedic value of it. What are you giving G. Scott Jr., tight end, wide receiver convert, G. Scott Jr.?
I don't know, like 66.
I was going to say 64 or like 61. I mean,
he's probably a pretty good athlete still.
The thing is he's one of these guys that if you switch him to wide receiver, he should become like rated 73. He should get a couple of points boost if he switched back to. I would put him ahead of Julian Fleming. I'll tell you that much. He would be starting my lineup ahead of Julian Fleming.
I mean, you're not going to see him on more than 20 blocking snaps this year. If that,
I mean, we should see the over/under on that is really going to be tight. It's really going to be tight. What a shame! What a shame, Ryan Day misusing G. Scott Jr. Let's go to Penn State here. I'm really interested in your rating of quarterback Drew Aller. He's my third overall quarterback. Drew Aller, what do you got? In my rankings at campuscan.com, $2.99 a month, $29.99 a year, just to get it foot in the door. Drew Aller, what are you rating him?
82.
Oh, you're contraire, mon frere.
I don't think I can rate him that much higher than Devin Brown, and I don't think I can rate him maybe
I can.
Above Kyle McCord. Like, I really like Drew Aller too. I just don't think his rating could reflect that.
No. Drew Aller is the best quarterback in the Big Ten. No, I was going to say he's the best quarterback. I was like, who? Yeah, he's the best quarterback in the Big Ten. Make no mistake, he's the best quarterback in the Big Ten. Give me Drew Aller at 87. Take him 87. 87.
That's hot. That's hot. That's spicy.
I would give him 95 throw power. 95 throw power. If there was like a DGAF rating, it would be up there for Drew Aller. It would be in the 90s also.
Another rating that we don't have, but I think he would be like a 99 in, looks good in shorts rating.
We should come up with other ratings. Looks good in shorts.
Looks good in shorts rating for Drew Aller is probably 99. Like he's got the quarterback body,
swag rating. The swag rating.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a quarterback that had just terrible swag. It'll come to me.
Kirk Cousins.
He's just like neutral, like bad. I'm talking about like bad, just like ugh. I don't like their face mask. I don't like the way they do anything. It'll come to us. Running back Nick Singleton. I think that he's the best running back on the game. I think there's an argument that Nick Singleton should be in the same area as Marvin Harrison Jr. as far as rating. I'm gonna go 93 for Nick Singleton, and again, probably the best running back on the game for me.
I was gonna say 92, so I think we're right in the same range. Yeah, this isn't very interesting, right? But no, I think he's probably the best. I'm trying to think if there's another a better running back. I really can't think of one. I think one we'll talk about later is going to be kind of close.
Braylon Allen, Raheem Sanders, those are the guys that are going to be in the conversation with him, and I think that he's the best. I'm giving him a 93, so he has some room to grow. His last year, his junior season, he'll be rated 97. Katron Allen, his backfield mate, IMG backfield mate, there. I'm going to give Katron Allen an 80.
You're much lower than I think I would be. I was going to say
what's the difference between Katron Allen and Mayan Williams? Very similar stylistically.
All right. Well, you rated Mayan Williams 5 points higher, so obviously there's a difference. I I was going to give him an 84.
Okay.
I mean, not that we're that far off, 80 and 84, but like in the grand scheme of things, that's probably somewhat of a difference. I just think Cajun Allen's a pretty good player. But Nick Singleton is substantially better.
Fair. We'll skip their wide receiver class. I don't know that there's anyone noteworthy there if there's no objection.
I have no interest in rating their wide receivers.
Michigan, J.J. McCarthy is an 81 for me. He's probably got, 87 speed, and so you would like to play with him, but his accuracy is probably a little bit off. And this is a player that you're going to want to run. You're going to, when you're using the avatar, you're just going to run a lot with that player.
I was going to give him 81 as well.
81.
That feels like perfect for JJ McCarthy, like a guy who just maybe his accuracy.
It's a good video game
player or something.
There are some guys that do they have NFL attributes? I don't know, but they have skills, and the user can account for whatever deficiencies they have in their actual game. And I think JJ McCarthy is that type of player. So just like with Michael Vick. With Michael Vick, they made his accuracy was off, but when you're playing with him, you press the right button, the ball is going to go to the right spot. And I think JJ McCarthy could be the same type of player. Blake, this is an interesting one. Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. Who's getting the higher rating here?
Corum.
Oh, okay.
I was giving Corum a 91.
Okay. All right.
But so I thought about this when we talked about it as a conversation topic tonight. Like, how many better collegiate backs are there than Blake Corum? Like, probably only a handful. And
That's true.
So he deserves to be in the 90s, in my opinion. If we're giving Nick Singleton a 93, I think Corum is a 90 or 91.
I would just have a lot of guys in the 80s. I would probably give Blake Corum an 88, and I would give Donovan Edwards an 85. But Donovan Edwards has a much higher ceiling. I mean, the frame, the pass catching ability, speed. He probably has more speed.
I'll give Edwards. I was gonna say 84, but I think that's probably about right. I think we're right on the same page. I just think Blake Corum is a really good back in this game, if that's really what we're trying to get at.
Let's go to Nebraska. Georgia Tech quarterback Jeff Sims has transferred to Nebraska. Another guy like JJ McCarthy, where his rating overall might not be great, but his skills would make him a fun player to play with on the game. Jeff Sims, what are you rating him?
Do you want my honest rating, or do you want I've seen Jeff Sims play a million times and I know Sims rating?
Yeah, give me your honest rating. He's a starting level college quarterback, so it can't be that bad.
69.
No, you get out of here.
No, I just think he stinks.
My goodness,
he seems like a nice guy.
Offensive.
Seems like a nice guy.
A nice guy. But
I just can't. I just don't think he's very good.
Now we're just going to flame Jeff Sims. I gave him a 73.
We're not even that far off.
There's a big difference between the 60s and the 70s. When you rate someone in
you could be in the 60s, that you're in the low 70s.
When you're in the 60s, that's just disrespectful.
What if I rated him 70? How would you feel?
That would be like, yeah, that's probably.
One point off. Okay.
Michigan State has one player that I care about as far as ratings go, and it's their basketball wide receiver convert, Keon Coleman. I'm probably giving him an 83, but he has, I don't know, jumping and athleticism metrics a player that would be fun to user catch with, Keon Coleman, to use your user catch ability.
Yeah, I actually really like Keon Coleman just in general, but I don't, I have him in a 79. It's like I don't have him in the 80s. I don't know if that's disrespectful or not.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
But I did the tactical aspect of the game I think can improve, but the athleticism and where he'll be graded highly, like you said, jumping and contested catch ability, and I think he has that.
A team that I'm not sure what the the developers of the video game are actually going to do with this team is Wisconsin, because for so long they have been, great offensive line, run your running back into the back of the line of scrimmage. They get Phil Longo now. They get Tanner Mordecai from SMU, who had an excellent 2021 season, an excellent 2021. He was a QB1 in college fantasy, right? Tanner Mordecai, a QB1 in college fantasy, throwing to Reggie Roberson and who's the guy's draft eligible now? I forget his name. Rashee Rice. Yeah. So Tanner Mordecai's there, and so is Nick Evers, but I think Tanner Mordecai should start. Tanner Mordecai, 74. Are you going higher or lower?
I'm actually going much higher. I'm going 82. I think he's a good player.
You think Tanner Mordecai is better than Devin Brown?
For the purposes of this game, yeah. Do I think that I would draft or evaluate him higher from a NFL talent perspective? No. But I think that his skill set kind of fits what Phil Longo wants to do, and I think that his strengths could parlay themselves into the scheme that Wisconsin wants to run. So, yeah, I would have 82. I would have him over Devin Brown for the purpose of the game, and I would have him over JJ McCarthy for the purpose of the game too.
Tanner Mordecai or JJ McCarthy? That is a good question. At Camps with Canton on Twitter for the video game, JJ McCarthy or Tanner Mordecai. It's going to be JJ McCarthy because he has speed is everything on the video games. When your quarterback can run, it just adds a different element to get first down. So it's going to be JJ McCarthy. All right, Braylon Allen. What's your rating for Braylon Allen?
89.
Yeah. Okay. That's
89, or I don't want to rate him behind Corum, who I gave in 91. So maybe I'll just tie them and say 90.
I do.
Oh, you think you would have him behind
90.
him?
I'm going 90 for I would have Braylon Allen ranked ahead of Blake Corum.
Yeah, I think they're pretty close in terms of what you want from a video game perspective. I think that they're going to be pretty close. It's
I'm rating Braylon Allen 90. All right. I don't know that we have anybody from. Well, all right. Here we go. Let's do one more here. Let's go to Illinois. The only player I really care about is wide receiver, quarterback turned wide receiver Isaiah Williams. I'm going to go 81 for Isaiah Williams, but his yards after catch, his punt returning, going to be high marks for Isaiah Williams.
Yeah, I was right in there. And I could say 82 with elusiveness being 95.
Yeah,
just an incredibly slippery player even at his size.
True story. The Illinois used to be one of the teams I used to love to build a franchise with. Aurelius Ben, Isaiah Juice Williams, quarterback. I think that was a Rashard Mendenhall team, if I remember correctly. Running back Rashard Mendenhall and Vontae Davis, Vernon Davis's brother, was a cornerback on that team. I used to flip him to wide receiver. He would play both. He would always win the Heisman because he would have 3 or 4 interceptions returned for a touchdown, 700 yards receiving, something like that. Two-way player, always win the Heisman, Vontae Davis. And then he quit football at halftime with the Colts. So
yes, he did. What do you think? And not on the sheet, but Josh McCray, running back at Illinois, who's probably going to play.
Yeah, it's a good question. Josh McCray and Reggie Love. Josh McCray and Reggie Love are going to replace Chase Brown there at Illinois. I think I would give Josh McCray an 80. Now, he was headed to being rated a little bit higher, but then he had dealt with injuries last year. Yeah. But after his freshman season, I think that he was, going to be somebody. I mean, I had him rated highly last year. He could have been in the 84, 85 range. I'll give him 80 right now.
I mean, I was getting him a 76, but the only thing that I think he does really well is be large.
He's
235, 240
feet. He's got very light feet for a man that size.
He's fine. You and your 230 plus. Yeah,
You're damn right. You're damn
plus
right.
running backs.
You're damn right. That's exactly what I like. How'd that segment go? How are we doing?
I don't know. What do people say?
I don't know.
I'm just getting great.
Let's get to, I mean, you can tell it's the offseason. You know, there are a couple of phrases that if they're used at the beginning of a podcast, you know that they had nothing to talk about. One of those phrases is, I was reading in The Athletic. Another one is mock draft. Those two phrases, when they're used, you can really tell that it's a struggle to get content out there.
Well, mock draft is it's like your ace. You know, when you need a little bit more engagement, you just slap mock draft on your video and you say
mock draft. Mock draft is like I wouldn't say it's your ace. Mock draft is who's
reliable.
Frank Reich was a quarterback who would come in for Jim Kelly and give you the games that he needed to get to the next game. That's what mock drafting is like. We need to get
late career Frank Gore.
That's a good one. I was trying to think of a quarterback though. Like who's a quarterback? Brock Purdy,
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Jimmy Garoppolo, yeah. Mock drafting is the Jimmy Garoppolo. But Jimmy Garoppolo's are like a starting level quarterback. You know who it is? It's Dan, what was the
Matt Castle.
The Eagles, yeah. The Eagles had like four backup quarterbacks that were guys that could get you wins.
Nick Foles.
Nick Foles is a perfect one. Mock
drafts are Nick Foles.
Mock drafting is the Nick Foles whatever. Yes, Nick Foles is a good comparison for that one. Let's quickly get into some of these running back battles. I think that this is a really interesting year to start playing campus to Canton leagues because there are so many new names. Like when I look at my rankings, I'm like, man, there are a lot of guys who are starting for the first time. There are freshmen. There are guys who haven't had large roles in offenses this season. It's no different at the running back position. I look at Texas losing Bijan Robinson, not only losing Bijan Robinson, also losing Roschon Johnson. Jonathan Brooks, who a lot of people like to hate on. Jonathan Brooks is their leading rusher as far as attempts goes coming back. And then you got Keelan Robinson coming back. He's a fifth-year player, Alabama transfer. He's also smaller. They've got Jadon Blue there who didn't get a lot of run last year. And then Cedric Baxter. Now, it could be that this is going to be a committee. I think Steve Sarkisian, Najee Harris is the name that sticks out in my head as far as deploying someone in the bell cow role. I mean, he could deploy a committee here in the bowl game against Washington. I mean, they kind of evenly split the carries between Robinson and Brooks. It's hard for me to project Cedric Baxter just taking this thing over the same way we saw with Nicholas Singleton. And it's because Cedric Baxter was his team and his running game and his offensive line was so dominant there in Florida that oftentimes you just saw him run straight through a hole and people just couldn't catch him. He's got a verified 4.5 40 at 210, 215 pounds. This is a dude who has a tremendous speed score, can move, but I don't know if he's someone who is necessarily thumping through tacklers. I don't know if he's a natural pass catcher. So I think that early on, and you got young guys there. I think early on we're going to see a committee in Texas while Quint Ewers tries to figure it out with Xavier Worthy and who's the possession guy that they had transfer there? That's going to take
Nayor or AD Mitchell.
Yes, AD Mitchell. But I think as far as the running back room goes, I don't know that we're going to see a lot of clarity early there at the 40 acres.
No, I actually agree with that. I do think there's a chance that Baxter catches on late as like a 10 to 15 touch guy and like the majority of touches. But even go back to what Bijan did as a freshman, right? Like he was never the lead back, even late in the season.
Well, no, late in the season he was. It was like the last couple of games of the season.
It was like week 10, 11, 12, and then their bowl game, which is when he took on
their bowl game against Colorado, where he averaged like 18 yards a carry. Like, running through them.
I just don't think that's what they're going to do. So I would guess that Brooks and Kalen Robinson are gonna take like 80%, and then you're gonna see Blue mixed in, Baxter mixed in. Like it's just gonna be a committee.
I remember that distinctly because made fun of Austin. Austin, he had like no carries through like week 3, and Austin was like, he's the best running back in college football. And I was like, how can you say that when Jahmyr Gibbs, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Austin is right. Don't tell him I said that. Alabama, another team that I think could head towards a committee, maybe. Now, Jace McClellan was the clear backup last year, and I think that we still, even after that ACL injury in 2021, we still think that Jace McClellan potentially has it. He has all the athleticism too. 4.45, 4.55, 40-yard dash, under a 4-second shuttle. It pairs that with a 39-inch vertical and has a 10.9 100-meter dash. So all of those things are telling us that this guy's the real deal as far as an athlete. And he has another year removed from that ACL injury, 4th-year player. I think it either could be committee or lean with him heavily. I'm not exactly sure. Roydell Williams is still there. Jamarian Miller was one of my favorite running backs in last year's class. Got 73 career catches in high school. He can catch the ball. We didn't see him really used that way last year. And then they also bring in my favorite running back in this year's class, Injustice Haynes. They've kind of given the ball to seniors there at Alabama. Tommy Rees is there now. I have no reason to believe that it's probably split between the top two, the 4th-year player in Roydell Williams and the 4th-year guy in Jace McClellan.
Yeah, I think McClellan's the guy. He'll probably be deployed in a very similar role to what Jahmyr Gibbs had this year. Like you said, like a credible athlete. I think he might have been the top-rated spark athlete in his class as well. Yeah, I mean, just like a really incredible athlete, and a year removed from the ACL injury, I think, or 2 years heading to the season. He'll probably be the guy. Roydell Williams will come in as more of like a thumper. He's not really a pass catcher. I think that opens a lane for Jamarian Miller to come in and kind of take over the Jason McClellan of last year role, which is, substitute pass catcher, guy who can sub in on 3rd downs occasionally. So, yeah, I actually really like Jason McClellan this year. I think he could have a really, really nice year.
See, I'm looking at these battles, and I'm like, which one of these guys is going to get 70% of the snaps? I don't know that we've talked about a backfield where that's going to be the case yet.
And it's almost, I mean, how rare is that out in like a Power 5 conference specifically, right? Like you've like Marcus Cooper at Kent State rushing like 25 times a game, and then backup gets like 2 carries. But like in the Power 5, you want to conserve these dudes because you probably have a guy who behind him who's like 90% as good.
USC. Lincoln Riley has deployed bell cows in Kennedy Brooks, Ramondre Stevenson at a bell cow role. There are a bunch of names here. Marshawn Lloyd transfers from the other USC to the real USC, or vice versa, however you want to call it. Austin Jones is still playing college football. He will be there. They've got Raleek Brown. Both Jones and Brown are, on the slider side. Marshawn Lloyd is too, but looks to me to be more of a bell cow. Now, he dealt with injuries early on at South Carolina. If Marshawn Lloyd is healthy, we could be talking about him at the top of the 2024 running back class, being maybe in that second tier after Travion, after Raheem Sanders. We could be talking about Marshawn Lloyd, in that next tier of players, because he has some really good flashes there at South Carolina.
Yeah, he did.
You sound unenthused. Mox, you're the South Carolina fan. You seem unenthused.
He's fine. Like I've watched him his entire South Carolina career, and I'm just like, all right, he's fine. Like, I don't think he's anything special. I really don't think he's anything special. I lean more committee than like huge workload for Lloyd. And it's funny we talk about USC, right? Is this real USC? But you know, the University of South Carolina was a school before California was a state. So who's really the real USC? I think Raleek Brown's actually going to get work in the passing game and out of the backfield, and I think that's going to limit anybody's upside because he came on pretty late in the season and really served a role in that game in the passing offense. And without Jordan Addison, I think that they're going to look for someone else, and I think Raleek Brown could be that guy. I don't think he's getting a lot of carries, but I do think he's going to limit whoever is the lead back, or even if it's committee, just upside. He'll take the majority of passing upside, I think.
It'll be interesting to see because I think we tanked Raleek Brown's rating after being, a 5-star player, at least according to the recruiting services. He was not very high in our ratings, relatively speaking.
He still doesn't have an NFL future. He's just a really dynamic collegiate back. It's kind of like where I land on him.
Florida State under Mike Norvell. Now, Trey Benson is the name that everyone is circling, and rightfully so. No Trayshawn Ward there. Mike Norvell has had success with Darrell Henderson, Kenny Gainwell. I mean, if you want to give him credit for Antonio Gibson also, even though Antonio Gibson played wide receiver there. I mean, this is a guy who has always wanted to run the ball. And now I don't know, like there's no clear competition for Trey Benson. He had 900 yards on the ground last year. He could be looking at 1,300 yards plus this year as in a full-time role for an ascending Florida State team.
I love Florida State this year. I have a championship future on them just at value and the Travis Heisman future. So this is an offense that I'm invested in. I just think it's really trending in the right direction. Trey Benson is going to be the guy, barring injury, probably. I mean, Trayshawn Ward transferred to Kansas State. They have a couple of other backs there, but nobody that I am really scared of. The question with Benson, in my opinion, is whether or not he has like legit Devy upside and like NFL upside. I don't know that he does in the way that I think people are drafting him. So I've seen him going in the top 10 rounds, and that makes me a little uncomfortable. I don't think he's a top 10 back.
But you know what? I think people may have said
class.
the same thing with Dwayne McBride, Israel Bonaconda, like some of these lower rated guys who were just productive, and we didn't realize that, hey, maybe they have at least a day 3 NFL draft potential.
Benson will go he will probably go day 3. Like, I don't want to say he doesn't have any NFL upside, but I'm talking like he's going earlier in camp scan drafts, and I really feel comfortable taking him, and probably Devy drafts too. He's being valued as a top 5-7.
Do you think on the college side that he's a potential RB1?
Yeah, I think I have him graded as my RB7. I mean, I'm higher than him in college fantasy than the rest of our crew is. So I think I have a RB7. Everybody else maybe has him outside the top 10. I would have to go back and look as I say that, but I mean, yes, but that's also like fraught with risk, and it's a more nuanced conversation in general. But I just think taking him the top 8 rounds of a CBC draft is pretty risky. So and I like him.
Chip Kelly is always producing RB1s. Carson Steele transfers there. TJ Harden is the redshirt freshman that we were kind of paying attention to. Like, is this the dude that's going to replace Zach Charbonnet? He's even kind of built like Zach Charbonnet, 6'1", 6'2", 210 pounds. Chip Kelly has a thing for these types of running backs because he's got a 3-star freshman who's 6'1", 230 pounds. He just likes finding, oh, look at that, Moxley, another guy who likes big running backs. I'm not the only one.
I was going to say it if you weren't going to say it.
So do you think that this is like Carson Steele's backfield, Or could we see a split like we saw in 2021 between Britton Brown and Zach Charbonnet? Could we see that type of split between Carson Steele and TJ Harden? Or there's Jones, I forgot Jones's first name, who's a bit of a smaller back. But do you think we could see a split there between Steele and someone else?
Yeah. Projecting today, I think Steele's the guy with like 55 to 60% of touches, and then probably divvied up behind him. However, but I mean, I like Carson Steele. I think Carson Steele would actually be really fine, or more than fine, probably a good fit in this offense. I think that he is a talented enough collegiate running back to perform, and I like TJ Harden fine, but I do think it's going to be Steele's job, at least like the majority of touches, and that means more than 50 in my opinion, so 50%. So I think that's a valuable role too.
Carson Steele, an NFL guy?
Day 3. Round 5, 6, probably. I don't know how many people are itching to draft a white running back who doesn't catch passes. I'm just saying.
I'm going to get Barnabas in here. There are a lot of backfields we can talk about. We've got time. When we have Austin and Matt on, or Austin's not going to be around for a little while, but we have Matt on. We can have a conversation about Miami. Now, I know that Miami's running game was supposed to be good under Josh Gaddis. They bring in Shannon Dawson, who was the passing game coordinator for the last 3 years in Houston, but can he revitalize that running game there in Miami? Miami's running game. Miami's third leading rusher was freshman quarterback Jakari Brown. Now they get Trevante Citizen back. They get Don Chaney Jr. back. I actually like Don Chaney Jr., another big between the tackles guy. But I think that could be an intriguing one. How does TCU replace Kendry Miller? Oklahoma, Texas A&M. Texas A&M is an interesting one. Auburn with no Tank Bigsby. Kansas State with no what's Mighty Mouse's name? Why am I forgetting names today? Deuce Vaughn with no Deuce Vaughn there for Kansas State. Oklahoma State with Dominic Richardson transferring to Baylor. I think these could all be interesting conversations, but we'll leave that for next week. Barnabas, just give it to us, man. How do we do tonight?
Well, so the name you were looking for in UCLA's backfield was Keegan Jones. I will also say Chip Kelly has only recently been really into big backs. If you remember back in the old days at Oregon, you have DeAnthony Thomas, Kenyon Barner, LaMichael James. These are all smaller guys. And frankly, they all lost out on NFL opportunities because they were tiny, one of the smaller kick returner guys stuck on the Chiefs for a while. But they honestly didn't contribute, even though they were, NCAA video game superstars. You used to be able to run jet sweeps with those guys to the house every play. I will also say you forgot about one Tony Pollard for giving credit to Mike Norvell, who Tony Pollard flirted with a 500 season almost all 3 years that he was under Norvell. So that was a big deal. But I did want to propose a little bit of a game here. Just to promote the athletic comparison tool on campusdecanton.com, where I will name some athletic comparisons from the Alabama and USC backfields. And you tell me because you guys know who these players are. You choose who you would start there, knowing roughly who each of these corresponds to. Does that make sense?
All right, hold on. Time out. Are we matching player with their athletic comparison?
No. So I'm giving you the athletic comparison, and you tell me. You guess who the starter is going to be based on the athletic comparison is.
Okay, I got you. All right.
So, for example, in Alabama, the 4 comparisons are one Antonio Pittman, Mike Gillislee, Kenyon Barner, and Roy Halou. Who's starting out of that backfield?
I have my guess. Do you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
I think it's going to be Kenyon Barner because I believe that is Chase McClellan.
Did you say Antonio Pittman?
I did say Antonio Pittman.
I don't remember Antonio Pittman. I remember Michael Pittman. I don't remember Antonio Pittman.
He is a little bit on the older side, but
Give me the
before
four.
I
Okay,
was covering.
give me the four. This is a good game. I like this game. So you
This
are
is a good
asking
game.
us to match who we think is the starter based on who their athletic comparisons are. This is a good game.
Yeah.
You got Antonio Pittman, Kenyon Barner. Kenyon Barner is tiny. That's got to be Kenyon Barner's got to be either Richard Young or one of the first or second year players. It's not Williams or Jace McClellan, I don't think. Kenyon Barner.
So you got Barner, Pittman, Mike Gillislee from Florida, and
Mike Gillislee.
Roy Halou.
Some of these are a little older. Williams. Mike Gillislee, who played with the Bills for a long time. I think I'm going to maybe Barner is McClellan because Barner was really athletic, but he was short. I thought Jace McClellan was like 6 foot. I'm gonna go with Kenyon Barner also.
The answer was Roy Halou. Jace McClellan is a little bit bigger than expected. According to the athletic tool on campuscan.com, he's listed at over 200 pounds. And so, that's one of those thresholds we look for. So it was Roy Halou. Jamarian Miller was Kenyon Barner. Justice Haynes was Antonio Pittman. And Richard Young was Mike Gillislee.
That's a good game.
I still don't hate that Jamarian Miller starting. All right, I can work with that for Barner.
All right, here we go. USC. It's just one more. We got Noel Devine, Cam Peoples, Tevin Coleman, Trey Mason, and Theo Riddick.
So Noel Devine is definitely. We brought up Noel Devine earlier today. Noel Devine is definitely Malik Brown.
Oh,
all right, give Noel Devine. Give us the comps again. Noel Devine,
Cam Peoples, App State.
Cam Peoples,
Theo Riddick, Notre Dame, Tevin Coleman, and Trey Mason.
Okay, so
Trey Mason is with the Ram. I think it's Trey Mason. I think Trey Mason is Marshawn Lloyd.
I do too. I think Malik Brown is probably Theo Riddick.
Yeah, the thing that's throwing me off is that they got Riddick and Austin Jones is one. So they got Riddick and Noel Devine, both smaller running backs. It doesn't matter because we know that those two, whichever one of them is Austin Jones and one of them is Malik Brown. We think that Marshawn Lloyd is going to start. So that's who was the other the comp I already forgot. That's
Trey Mason,
I said the
I
name.
believe, is who you were saying.
Trey Mason, yes.
Yeah.
I think Trey Mason is the starter.
And you would be correct. That is Marshawn Lloyd. Theo Riddick was Austin Jones. Malik Brown was Noel Devine. Quentin Joyner is Tevin Coleman, and Amarian Peterson is Cam Peoples. A little bit taller, leggy guys.
Amarian Peterson, Cameron Peoples comp is actually pretty good. Like just thinking about those two players, like I actually really like that comp. Just as an aside,
I like this segment, Barnabas. It's you brought your own flair to it. You brought your own flair to it.
I just wanted to promote the athletic comparison tool on campusdecatur.com. Go check it out, people. I also wanted to mention on that Illinois team that you played NCAA video game on, Felix. Also on that team was Josh Brent, rest in peace. That was a big loss in the NFL for a while, and the Cowboys especially. But that was a bad defense overall, to be honest with you. They only held opponents under 20 points in a pretty rough era of the Big Ten. Under 20 points only 4 times all season. So that was not a good defense. So, I'm sure.
I think they had 2 draft picks on that defensive line, though. I think that there was a guy who went to the Texans and a guy that went to the Chargers on that defensive line, if I remember correctly.
I was looking through the stat sheet. I didn't recognize too many names on there. So, I mean, granted, that was a few years ago, but yeah. And then, so I wanted to make a couple points on your ratings here. First of all, so if you want to make the NCAA video game roughly similar to the college game, or I'm sorry, to Madden, similar to Madden, I will say that only 3.5% of players, so that is 73 out of 2,080 players, are rated at a 90 or above. So that's actually very rarefied air. So I don't know if that changes your ratings at all, but it is very, very small sliver of people.
We only gave 2 players 90 ratings, though.
If you want to add in anyone above an 80 overall, that is only 14% of the entire player pool. So just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying you necessarily need to change those, but if you want the distribution to be exactly the same as Madden, we're talking only 14% of players are above an 80 plus. And I looked it up through someone who databased the entire player pool in Madden. So that's my source. But I will say, if that video game ever comes out, JJ McCarthy rolling out to a corner route on a receiver is going to be the spam play. That is the spam play, and you run that every single time. I know. And I also of note, Katron Allen's from IMG. IMG just had their first ever player to make the Super Bowl past year, Josh Sweat. And so, first ever. So that was big news. And maybe a surprise, and maybe another thing to note later. The bottom of the swag rankings, Mike Valerie can back me up on this, is Tyson Baggett for sure. The man can did not know how to dress. Yeah, the man did not know how to dress. He was wearing basically the same thing as Jaron Hall, who was standing right next to him, and Jaron Hall looked good, and Tyson Baggett did not. So, so that is your negative swag there. He was, making decent throws, but he wasn't like falling behind in that area, but the swag was a little bit lacking in my opinion. And I was a little bit personally offended when you guys were talking about what makes college football, because as a 4-year marcher in the mighty sound of Maryland, go Terps, marching band is what makes college football. Big Ten,
fair enough.
Yeah. Marching band is what makes college football. And kind of along with that is the bigger stadiums. NFL stadiums don't get that big. And with that comes the student sections, which are integral parts of college football. And the game day experience is you just can't match it in the NFL. And on the note of Walker Lyons, yes, he's committed to USC and going to Norway for 2 years. I was curious, what notable NFL players did their Latter-day Saints missions? And so I brought up it doesn't cover everyone, but some notable names here. Daniel Sorensen did his 2-year mission in Costa Rica. We had Tony Bergstrom, offensive tackle for the Ravens. He was in Sacramento. Xavier Suafilo did a 2-year mission in Tallahassee, which, having lived in Tallahassee for a few years, that place is in need of something. I don't know what it is, but maybe the mission can provide. Garrett Bowles did his mission in Colorado Springs, Taysom Hill in Sydney, Australia, and Chad Lewis, walk-on receiver for the Eagles back in the day, was in Taiwan. Brady Christensen in New Zealand as well. Simi Fehoko in my motherland, Korea. One notable name that did not go to a mission was one Dax Milne. So that is a short list I found online.
That's a good list. Imagine being the dude who gets sent to Tallahassee versus like Norway or like Costa Rica or something. Like I'm just saying. Like I know it's random, but like that's tough.
Yeah.
Is that all you got, Barnabas?
That's all I got. Yep.
Very impressive segment, Barnabas. I'm like, how do we include you earlier in the show? I mean, people are just going to fast forward. But very, very good job, Barnabas. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
I do want to, before we get out of here, I do want to plug. If you haven't listened to it already, I did speak to Miami of Ohio head coach Chuck Martin today, and it's an interesting interview. I asked him about Tommy Rees. Tommy Rees was his quarterback when he was an offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. I asked him about the best player that he's coached. I asked him about the best player that he's had to game plan against, whether or not he's ever thought about giving up coaching. It's an interesting conversation to hear a Division I head coach talk about his career. So I would encourage you to go listen to that. All right. It's on the YouTube page. I'll probably get around to putting the audio on the podcast whenever I get to it. All right. Make sure you check out all the content around the Campus to Canton family, but that is going to be our show for tonight. Apologies to Kirk Herbstreit. We ran out of time. We'll get him rescheduled soon. For Chris Moxley and Barnabas Lee, I'm Felix Sharp. Good night and good luck.